submitting your questions in advance. That was wonderful. Today, I am your host. I'm Jason Lindstrom. I'm one of the managing partners, or as I'm otherwise known, Director of Awesomeness at an organization called Bucket List. I'm a huge fan of culture, recruiting, and people. I've had a chance to build 3 different startups. One was awarded as one of the best places to work in the province of British Columbia. But more importantly, here with me today is Rachel Williams. She's the head of corporate recruiting and inclusion at Yelp. I had the opportunity to meet Rachel at a conference, a culture conference, and I was immediately struck by 2 things. First, she was a super smart, highly knowledgeable person. She clearly knew her stuff when it came to recruiting, culture, and people. But more importantly, I was just generally impressed with her demeanor and how warm she was, and how she generally had a keenness to help the people in the audience. And I immediately knew that I'd love to share her knowledge with my network and the expanded network in general. So today I'd love to welcome Rachel. She's not only does she work at Yelp, which has a $2.3 billion valuation and over 4,000 employees. She's also spoken at institutions like Stanford, which is pretty darn impressive. And if you check out her LinkedIn profile, you'll see a huge number of glowing reviews of people who've had a chance to work alongside her and beside her. So Rachel, thank you very much for joining us today.
That was the best introduction I've ever had. I need to carry you with me everywhere I go. That's amazing.
The pocket introducer, right? I can be that guy. Well, I'm happy to help out. So for the people on the call, we're going to be switching to your questions in just a moment. The cool thing is, wherever possible, I would group your questions together. There's definitely themes that emerged. Without further ado, our agenda today is to do your question and answers. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit more about staying in touch. Having said that, I think we can jump into the first question.
Cool.
So the first question, this question was asked by a few different people. I'd love to say thank you to Yuli and a few others. And that specific question is, what are some tactics to recruit A players? What's the number one thing I can do to attract talent? So kind of 2 big themes there. Rachel, I'm going to turn it over to you. What are your thoughts on this big question?
Yeah, there's a couple things. So I'm probably going to talk about a few different things that you can do. Jason, you and I chatted a little bit about this. I would say the number one thing that you can do is to create a strong employment brand. And you may be thinking to yourself, I'm a small business owner, or we're under 10 people, or I'm a more mature company and the brand has kind of gotten away from you at the moment. And what I would say, you can always turn that around. The beauty of social media is that you can control the messaging. And so I would think as many images and messages that you can put out via Facebook or your Google site or your website even, which is a big telltale of your culture, that it's inclusive and that you have fun and you welcome varying ideas and you're innovative. However you want to show that, I think that is what A players are looking for. 2, I would say when it comes down to really to the job description, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit later, but staying away from words like rockstar, which is the title of this webinar, because it screams male. And not super inclusive to women, although we have women rock stars. I love Taylor Swift. So, but there are gender-specific words that I think we should probably stay away from. So I would use there's a great tool that we use here at Yelp, and I know many other companies do, called interviewing.io. And basically, if you put your resume through their kind of online platform, they will check it to see how strong it is in attracting all genders, and how strong it is in attracting just anyone. And so I think that's one of the great things that you can do to attract A players of all types.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. So let's say whether I'm a small, medium, or even a large company, and I'm projecting out my employer brand, which we're chatting about a few seconds ago. Yeah. Do you guys take the time to actually craft out what your employer brand bullet points are? What are the key things we want to be presenting? So I guess, and for the people on the call, I guess the way to position that question is, should you be strategic in about the employer brand? And if so, like, what the heck do you do? Like, how do you get strategic about it?
Yeah, we actually do have different messages or messaging for the people we want to recruit. So Yelp is a tech company or a website, and we're an app. One would think that most of our employees are in engineering, but in fact, most of our employees are in sales.
Right.
And sales folks are storytellers. And so when we're messaging to that particular audience, we do things like a day in the life of a sales executive here at Yelp, and we do it through our blog on our website. We'll push it out through LinkedIn. We'll push it out through Facebook. We'll do a video sometimes, just, kind of raw video of someone from their phone, like walk around with this account executive for the day. So we do that. For engineers, engineers aren't necessarily into that sort of thing, so we have different messaging for them. So we have really kind of thought through the different departments, and so we message differently to those specific groups.
That's excellent. I can imagine the power of the storytelling for salespeople. And right now, just to give everybody on the call context, we're sitting in the Yelp headquarters in San Francisco in the sales building. It's surrounded by how many?
About 1,200.
1,200 salespeople, and you may occasionally hear cheering and clapping in the background. As we walked into the room, there was like a vibrant, intense atmosphere. So I can see how that storytelling would really appeal to this particular group. That's awesome.
Sure.
And I really love how you guys are deliberate and conscientious about like who's our target market when it comes to recruitment, and what sort of things do we need to be putting out there to recruit these high quality people in. That's compelling.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. So I'm going to jump to the next question. What are your tips? And how apropos. We got ahead of ourselves a little bit here. What are your tips to crafting job postings to attract candidates? And I'd like to thank Julie for this question.
Yeah. So, Julie, thanks for the question, because I do think there's a difference between a job ad and a job description. So in a job advertisement, which is what candidates will see on your website and Indeed.com or any of these kind of other websites, you want to put less about the qualifications necessary. I think you want to keep that to a minimum, and more about the company and the culture and how the role fits into the larger picture and mission of the company. That A players want to know how their work, their day-to-day, is going to contribute to the larger mission of the company, and how that larger mission of the company is going to help the world. So making those connections in the job advertisement is the best thing that you can do to attract someone. Yes, you should probably put that a BA is necessary, blah, 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 but I would, like I said, keep that to a minimum, because you really want to cast a wide net. And like I said, just in general, you will probably attract A players if you're connecting those dots for them early on in the job ad. A job description is a bit different, because that's probably what the recruiters are using to kind of verify whether someone is a good fit for the day-to-day role as outlined by the hiring manager, and it's probably what you're going to use to ask questions during the interview process, and it's probably what you're going to use to evaluate performance down the road. So that's got to be super detailed. And one of the things we like to do here is kind of have it bucketed around our values. Pick some good values if you're at the early stages. Leverage your values if the values have been around, because it's a great way to also remind people what the company stands for and believes in throughout the interview process. So I would say job descriptions are much longer, much more in-depth about the day-to-day, and then there's job advertisement, which is what you use to attract. And you've got to connect those dots for them of how their day-to-day is going to fit into the mission of the company, and the mission of the company fits into the world.
That's cool. Does Yelp hire based upon core values? Is that like a part? I don't want you to give away any part of your screening process. So feel free to just dodge or not answer the question if it's appropriate.
I would say, so we use in our applicant tracking system, we have questions in there related to our 5 values. So does this person display the value of playing well with others?
Yes.
Or, has this person displayed the value of tenacity?
Awesome.
So we do have those prompts in our applicant tracking system for the interviewers. I I wouldn't say that they're standard and everybody uses them, but it's definitely top of mind here.
Like a resource they can lean on to recruit the right type of people to create a consistent culture. Awesome. Yeah. That's powerful stuff. I love it. And not to get too hyper tactical, but I really like the idea of connecting the dots between the specific role, the company, and how the company's serving a bigger message and, serving a bigger cause to, I'm guessing, making the world a better place. Yeah. Is that like, so to get very tactical, is that like the introductory paragraphs? Like what is, for example, what is Yelp all about? Or the people in the call, is it like starting off just here's what we're all about, here's our mission? Like how would you structure it?
Yeah, I would say, yes, general, it's here's what we're about and here's more about you. It's kind of the structure of how we do it. You could start off to appeal to the ego of the human. Start off with here's you. Yeah. Here's how you would fit into who we are and what we've been up to, and then kind of the greater mission, and then the bottom you could have like a couple of bullet points that you think are critical for the job. So yeah, it's probably 2 or 3 paragraphs at the beginning, maybe 2, no more than that, and then the bullet points. I also want to point out that you should probably have or work with someone in marketing or PR or communications. Recruiters are great. I am a recruiter, but I wouldn't say that marketing is like my my skill set. So I always run these things by folks who have been trained in that area to see like, how does this sound? Should I be using another word? Like, that's what they're there to do. So
excellent, very good, thank you. Cool. We're gonna go to the next question now. So that is, what tools do you use, if any, to help you with recruiting, recognition, and retention? And this question is from Bart Wisnowski. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Bart. Wow, we do use a ton of tools. I think there's no way around using platforms to help you recruit. So I talked a little bit about the social media piece, and I think the major players there are, kind of Facebook. We have an Instagram account. We definitely have a Twitter account. We have LinkedIn as well. So, those are kind of the stable social media accounts that we use. And then internally, we have an applicant tracking system. We use Lever. There are so many other out there, so you can probably pick one that's beneficial for you. There's also some free tools online that you can use to help manage the candidate process and help manage all the candidates that are coming in from your website or other websites. We use Intello, which is another great product specifically for engineering candidates. They also have a diversity facet to their platform, which is great. We use Piazza, which is a platform that reaches out to college students and university students, and it was originally started, which is a really cool story, just so students can connect with their professors, because in some of these large institutions, 500 students, it's hard for you to really connect with your professor, and so the professor would post things in Piazza. Well, they started to leverage that to companies and say, if you're looking for someone who has taken a specific, maybe CS course at this particular school, if you can get that granular, then you can connect with this professor. When it comes to recognition, you guys are probably hearing it right now. If someone closes a deal here, the entire team gets up from their desk, they clap. Usually your theme song is played, so you get to have a theme song. Like, for instance, I love 24 Karat Gold by Bruno Mars. Like, that would probably be my theme song.
Just for example.
Just you gotta have a theme song. And then you go and ring the gong. And so that kind of parading through the office lets everybody know that you just closed a big deal. So that's a big pat on the back. So that's one of the things they do in sales. On the engineering side, we have these really huge stuffed animals. One is a big purple unicorn, and they're just different kinds for different things that you may accomplish when it comes to engineering. So if that big and furry thing is sitting on your desk or near your desk, everybody kind of knows. So you don't have to spend a ton of money on platforms to recognize people, but we also do have Yelp Love. That was something that was created by Yelp engineer during our hackathon. So we give our engineers the 2 days every quarter, I believe, to just work on anything they want to work on. And Yelp Love is one of those things where it just lists everybody in the company, and you can just send them 140 characters of what you did or what you're thanking them for, and the entire company can see that you sent that person love, and then they get the option to send you love back. The love fest can then continue, but that's another one. And there's a leaderboard on who gives the most love and who receives the most love. So we do mention that and talk about that here as a way to recognize people.
And just as an additional note to that, how important is recognition to, say, new recruitment sectors, specifically millennials and up-and-coming future generations as well? Is recognition growing in importance, staying the same, or diminishing maybe?
Yeah, well, I think recognition is probably growing in importance. Definitely millennials love them to death. They grew up during an age where there was a lot of participation awards, and so companies are now having to continue on what they've been used to. But I also think that what retains millennials, and frankly just anybody, I think anybody wants to know like what they're contributing, how it's connecting to the larger mission, and then also how do they get to the next level. Like clearly defined career paths keep people retained and working hard for you and giving that discretionary effort if they know I do X, Y, and Z for the next 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, I'm going to get to this thing. So I think that's one of the things we've really been working on here. We have clearly defined steps in sales. We've always had a flat organization on the engineering side, definitely working on a little bit more clear definitions there, but that helps with retention.
Excellent. So clear career paths and serving a bigger purpose in the day-to-day role as well, and of course recognition. And all the extras as well. I love it. Wonderful. Thank you. So we're going to jump to the next question. This is maybe a little bit of a repeat, but I'll give it a go. So what are the best resources for attracting talent? Is online the best strategy? And I'm gonna add something that I saw as in addition to this question, and that was when you're entering new geographies, what are the best tools, resources, and strategies? That was kind of an addendum to this question.
So we did talk about social media quite a bit, and I think that is a free tool that you can use. You can get friends and family to like your page or what have you. So the return on the investment in that could be huge. But I would say, a resource that people don't leverage enough are your local universities and colleges, and I would say even maybe junior colleges or trade schools. So all of those folks have directors of career services. I would say stopping by there and having a chat with whoever is running the career center at those universities so that they are aware that, hey, you're in town, you're looking for X, Y, and Z people, and they can talk it up as students come to them. It's like free, it's no cost except for the time that it takes to chat with those folks. And I think if you're going to stay in that particular town or area for a while, building that relationship with those folks is a good thing to do. They hardly ever leave those jobs for some reason, so it's a good investment of your time to build those relationships with those career centers, and just get to know what their programs are and what type of students are there and available to you. Because, I think we don't do that enough.
And kind of as an extension of that, how important are employee referrals, say at Yelp or other organizations? And do you guys have like systems and processes around that, like whether it's a reward or I don't know, like how does that work there?
So tricky, employee referrals are great. I would say that is kind of one of the ways you maintain your culture that you've built. So you kind of started with a group of 10 or so folks, and you all get along well. Everybody exposes the values that you set out: tenacity, authenticity, playing well with others. And those people probably know 10 other people who have those same values. I would say I would caution against that because now I'm putting on my diversity and inclusion hat, because human beings are tribal. And we tend to hang out with people who are only like us. And so you do get to a point in your evolution of your company, if you only rely on employee referrals, where there isn't enough diversity of thought, diversity of perspective, because now you've just continued to hire the same profile and the same person over and over and over again. So I would say, yes, you should have an employer referral program. We have one here. We give, I think, at the baseline, $500. There's some monetary things. It goes up and down depending upon the season and what the job is. But I would say you need to also balance that with making sure that folks are maybe going beyond their network to find varying perspectives. And as you're having conversations about the job description, that you're thinking about the type of person you need to round out the entire team, not just what the day-to-day tasks are going to be. What are you missing from a perspective? What perspective are you missing from that team, and hire towards that? So, yeah.
That's a fresh perspective. I've heard so much about the power of employee referrals, but I can see how hiring too much of the same type of person just naturally limits perspective. That's a really good perspective.
Yeah. I had to say, when I was here at Yelp 2009 to 2011, pre-IPO and running recruiting, like we prided ourselves on 40%. As a matter of fact, I think I did a presentation that's floating out there, like, 40% employer referrals. Like, we were so proud of that. And, fast forward 4 years from then, it's like, now we have a diversity and inclusion challenge because, we let
maybe because of those employer referrals, right?
Referrals, like, oh no. So, cautionary tale for people.
Excellent. That's such a good fresh perspective. Wonderful. So I'm going to jump to the next question. What does a good recruiting process look like? And at a high level, what are the steps and stages? And I heard this from a number of different people phrased differently, so I'm just going to kind of open it up. And this is actually a question I'm really fascinated in hearing your.
Yeah. I've been a recruiter for 20 years, which is, didn't think I'd be doing it for that long. Kind of just took a job as a recruiting assistant and thought I was going to be doing something else. But anyway, I would say the best practice in an interview process is to make sure that the questions are standardized. When you're trying to evaluate human beings, you need to have some baseline and some standard to evaluate everyone against, and it's just hard if everyone's asking different questions to each candidate every time. So I would say, and also it helps to mitigate bias as well by having standardized questions. So I would say have standardized questions. It might be a good idea to, again, like I said, formulate them around the values of the company. So you can have a bucket that's around authenticity, and you can ask situational questions around, can you tell me about a time where you had to, hold on to your moral values because it was, your boss asked you to do something against, I don't know, something like that. And then assign each value and set of questions to each interviewer. That way that interview gets really, really good at discovering authenticity and tenacity and also the task, right? There's a technical piece. But that person will be able to then really say, wow, in comparison to the other 4 candidates I met that I asked this exact same question to, this person ranks a little bit higher. So that's one. Standardized questions is probably number one tactic. But kind of doing big picture, I would say a recruiter's role is to be a business partner. So I am never the decision maker. I would say at most I'm the gatekeeper because I'm the one reviewing the resumes, and I would be the one doing the phone screen, initial phone screen. And that's kind of like standard process. At the next level, I would say do some sort of testing. So let's say you're looking for someone who's in PR communications, send them some sort of test in which they have to write up a fictitious press release or something like that, because that's the way to get to the technical part if the person has the technical chops that you're looking for. And we do this in engineering with coding tests, and you can come up with some kind of way to test a candidate for any role. And so I would say do that next. The person passes that with flying colors. That's when they come in for an on-site. And the on-site is really, really important. It's an opportunity for them to see your culture in action. So we try to pride ourselves on trying to make a great impression from our front desk people, to being really welcoming, to the coordinator who does the greeting or the recruiter who does the greeting and gets them settled into a conference room. So really looking at all of those details. And then I would say no more than 2 hours, 2.5 hours on site. We really don't want to torture people. It's a huge ask on both ends. And so, have 4 to 5 people meet with the person for 30 minutes. It doesn't sound like a long time or enough time, but if you've trained your interviewers on how, we only ask 1 or 2 questions per meeting with a candidate. And people go, wow, there's so many more questions you could be asking. Well, you really want to dig deep in those questions. And so you may ask a situational question to start off with, and then you ask follow-up questions. So what did you do? So what was your role? So, how did that end? So what was your insights after that event happened? So by the time you ask all the follow-up questions, you're pretty much at your 30 minutes. Be well prepared as an interviewer. You make sure your people have read the resume before walking into the room. So that often happens a lot. And so as recruiters, it's our job to make sure that the interviewers are well prepared in that regard, because you can't waste time sitting in front of a candidate reading their resume, which is so rude. So and then after that on-site with kind of 4 or 5 people, and you have the information from their test, and you have the information that the recruiter has gathered. That's about 6 or 7 pieces of information, which should be plenty for you to then make a decision. Once the decision is made, I would say give another kind of more casual opportunity for the hiring manager and the candidate to meet, if that's a coffee or maybe just a follow-up call, or maybe it's a walk around the block, just to spend some time together one-on-one to see if this relationship is really gonna work and be fruitful for everyone, and then you can move to offer stage.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's such a insightful process. I wrote down all the steps as Rachel was talking, and I counted sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different steps. But I think that makes a lot of sense. Like you want to get the right people on the bus, obviously, and then when you get them on there, you want to make sure they're in the right role. But this feels like this really sets you up for success. And so, out of curiosity, how many people? Let's say how many people does it take to make one good hire? And I don't know if you have an answer for that, but are there some rough percentages? Let's say 100 people start off the process, whether it's, let's say maybe for a sales role, 100 people start off in the sales application process. How many will make it through to the final layer of that offer?
It's usually kind of a 4 to 1 situation. So in general, if we have we hire between 200 and 250 people per month, we've probably had over 1,000 conversations.
Got it.
To get to that.
Got it. Very good. And a multi-layered conversation.
Yeah, multi-layered conversation.
Excellent.
Yeah. So wow.
Cool. Very cool. And one final question. To run the casual interview, kind of the final test. From that final test, what percentage of people would drop out from there? And are you just looking for really real gotchas, like a final authenticity test to make sure everything jives before going forward with this person? Or
yeah, well, I think there is value in getting people out of interview mode and putting them in a more casual setting, because especially with salespeople, they know how to turn it on during the interview process, right? And you having them come to your office and they're sitting down and it's all very formal. I think putting people into a different environment, something casual, people loosen up, and you tend to start to see who is this person really? And so that's kind of final for both sides, but definitely for the hiring manager to see.
That's great. As a really quick anecdote, I know one company that does something similar to that, where no hiring people, they set up a final casual interview similar to what you do, but it's just employees who go that individual, and they'll often go for coffee or for breakfast. And sometimes they'll deliberately set up the coffee or breakfast for failure, meaning somebody will be sent out with burnt toast, and you see how that person authentically reacts to those bad situations, right? So, it sounds like you've heard this before. And I thought it was weirdly clever. Whether I want to do it or not, I don't know, but it is interesting to see how do people respond to a bad experience? Are they positive? Are they upbeat?
I would say it feels a little manipulative.
That's what I was thinking.
Just a tad. But I have to say, if you are taking someone out into a casual situation, you probably should be keeping your eyes out for how they treat, how they treat other folks. And,
awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. I'm going to jump to the next question, and that is, what can a small business do to compete for talent against big, reputable organizations? I hear this question a lot.
Yeah.
And like sometimes small business can be 500 people, 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Because especially, and this is one reason I was so excited to talk to you. There's so many amazing brands that I'm sure everybody wants to work for. How do you and forget this, whether it's not just a small business, how does any business compete against the big brand?
We're competing against it, right? Yeah. So one, I have to say that if you are kind of earlier stage or smaller, that you're always going to attract a different group of people. Back in my early recruiting days, one of my mentors, she always said there's a group of people who kind of start the company and build the company up to, X millions of dollars. And then there's another set of people that build it to the next X, and then, the next X and the next X. And I think I wouldn't even consider yourself to be competing with them. That's one of the things I do love about working here is that we don't really consider competing with them. If your values are aligned, I think if you've created this great, not only employment brand, but a great inclusive culture where people have fun, people are recognized, people are working hard and giving their discretionary effort, all of that is going on, then you're probably going to attract the right people for you. Because I have to say, Facebook and Google have infinite amount of money. The perks are way beyond anything that I think are real in the real world. But I have to say, there probably isn't a huge correlation, which I think Google said at some point, between we have all these perks and all this money, that we absolutely have the best talent and the best minds working here. Those two, that doesn't mean that. Sometimes I think the best A players really want a smaller environment where they can make a bigger impact. They want a more family oriented vibe to come into work every day. People who really know what they're going through at home or how to support them, and all of that. So I think just put your best foot forward in terms of your culture. Work on your culture more than anything, and you'll attract the right people for you.
I like that. So I guess what I'm hearing that I find inspiring or aspirational is the fact that whether you're small or big, it's almost like forget what the big guys are doing. Just be really good at and authentic about what you're all about. So and communicate your mission on how you're helping the world. Because Google is just Google, Facebook's Facebook, and at the end of the day, you want to recruit the people who are going to be most successful at your company.
That's right.
So that's awesome.
I know. A little bit arrogant, I guess, of not paying attention to them, but
I think that's, even from a marketing point of view, that's what I've been told over my years of entrepreneurship, is you want to focus on your message and how you're going to be great and make a difference in the world. It's wonderful, cool. Next up, and that question is, and Lee, thank you very much, my man, for asking this question. What is the average percentage or cost to find that rockstar employee?
So I shared with Jason that Lee, that I am not the numbers person on this one. I would say that the cost probably varies a great deal depending on if you are Google and a Facebook, or if you're kind of an early stage angel seed funded company. But in general, you're going to have the cost of your job posting. So there is that. You will have the cost of the time of the folks who are interviewing, so you can kind of add that piece up, and then there's the cost of the time that it takes. So we just kind of outlined maybe 7 or 8 interviews, so there's all that. So all of that time goes into each hire or each candidate that you're talking to, and then eventually get to that hire. So it can be pretty expensive, which is why companies are solely focused, I would say even more so on the retention of candidates, on retention of employees, I mean, versus the attraction of candidates. Pay attention to the people you already have there. Make sure they're happy. Do some surveys. Do some quick check-ins, because the cost of someone leaving with institutional knowledge and you having to start this process all over again is quite costly.
Yeah, absolutely. Next, what is a corporate benefit or perk that you feel attracts top talent? And feel free to dispute this as a question in general, but are there any things that really catch people's eyes?
I do think, particularly here in the U.S., costs around medical benefits and things like parental leave or just leave in general, a PTO, I think that is a huge benefit. I think that millennials and Gen X and everyone really looks at nowadays, depending upon kind of what stage of life you're in. I know that's a huge topic here, kind of how much time do we give to new parents, and then, do we have sabbatical time for those who want to take some time to just think, do we have time for people who want to volunteer and give back? So all of this benefit around leaving work, but I think that's something that you probably should stay current with and try and do better than your competitors if you have competitors around. One of the greatest benefits or perks that I had at previous companies was kind of unlimited PTO, which people go, that's great, it's awesome, but of course, you hardly ever use it. But to know that I could and that it was there and it was available, it was a much smaller company. They were pre-IPO, and so I think that as a recruiter, when I told candidates that, it was like, okay, I want to continue conversations with this company.
I love it. And maybe as an extension of that, how important is I think another sale was made.
Nice. Keep closing.
We're a very lively conversation environment. What are your guys' policy on remote working? And do you guys support remote working a lot?
Yeah, we actually do have a department. So our community managers. So we have kind of marketing and brand ambassadors in each city who help get more businesses onto our platform, who also help to get more users contributing to the platform in each major city in the U.S. And maybe a few outside of the U.S. But so they're all remote, working in their cities in New Orleans and Seattle and whatnot. And so they've actually hardly ever, I think once a year they come to our headquarters. So they manage their own time. They work externally, and I think we've picked the right people for those jobs because they self-manage their time, and some of them do other things. They DJ, or they're on the radio, they have TV shows. It's crazy. So yeah, we do have those remote employees who actually enjoy some of the benefits and are looking to me and my inclusion role anyway on how can we create employee resource groups with remote employees. So that's going to be one of my interesting challenges to do, looking for a cool platform to bring people together online.
Very cool, yeah. And that's a huge emerging trend that a lot of companies are seeing. How do
we do that?
This is a great question, and that is, how do you know your applicant is not interviewing just to leverage his or her current job situation? And I wanted to thank Irene for asking this question.
Yeah, Irene, I have to say, it's always tricky. You're always taking a chance because just as Jason and I kind of discussed, people always put their best foot forward when it comes to interviewing. But I would say there are definitely specific questions that you can ask, and I am a big fan of being direct. So if you have that feeling that this person is running from something, I would, one, do maybe research on the company that this person is coming from. So look at their latest blogs and press releases and any, as I say, scuttlebutt you can find on them on Glassdoor. Like, is that person running from a bad culture or a bad environment? business not good, they're not going to make their IPO because the product is failing. What is that? So I would say do your research as well. I would say look at the person's job history a little bit. Like, is this person a 6-month hopper? That may be a pattern of theirs that you want to be aware of. And then 2, I would ask them, point blank, kind of catch people off guard. I think we're not candid enough in our interview process. This is not, we're looking for long-term hires. I don't think anybody's thinking, oh, I only want this person for 6 months. I mean, of course, there's contract work, and that's specific, but ultimately, everyone wants someone who's going to be there for a long time. And just with any long-term relationship, you should probably ask those candid questions up front. There's a set of questions I ask my boyfriend for sure, like, like, do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want this? And I kept him around because of the answers that he had to those questions. And so similarly, in this long-term relationship you're trying to create with this person who's going to bring a certain skill set to your company, I would ask them, hey, what's prompting you to look? Are you leaving because you're running from something, or you're running to something? I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the kind of questions on the table, and I love how those questions can be transferred to different scenarios.
Yeah.
Very good. And I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We're just about at time. We're actually a little bit over, but we are very close to wrapping up here. And the last question, recruitment in a highly competitive environment, to what extent is it all about the money?
Yeah. So just a quick story, I guess, about me and Yelp. So the founders of this company, we never put in, and we still don't have today, any type of bonus program. I mean, there's definitely commission-based sales, and as we should, but we don't have a classic bonus program where everyone is evaluated and they get a piece of the company's, kind of performance year over year based on a percentage and this and that and the other. And that was done primarily because we wanted people to be motivated in the right way. We used to give people from a book called by Daniel Pink, who talks a lot about motivation. And so I would say people stay here. I came back here. Not because they're paying me an exorbitant amount of money, but because of the culture, but because I knew that how my work directly impacted the larger picture of the company, because I enjoy the people I spend 40 to 50 hours a week with, because of the balance. So there's so much more. As a matter of fact, I believe I took a slight pay cut from my previous employer to come back to this culture that had been created.
Wow.
So it is definitely not all about the money. I'm sure I could be commanding a lot more than I am right now. But
I'm sure you deserve it. I don't know who's listening or will be listening in the future, but
but that taught me that it's really about the culture that's created and how you feel coming into work every day. Do you feel like you belong and can be your authentic self? And there's no price tag for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. There's a stat or a slide that I've seen a few times, and it says that especially with millennials, culture is more important than compensation.
Yeah.
And these days, 95% of people choose culture over compensation. And this particular stat is accompanied by this really cool visual where you can see a huge stack of the 95 versus the 5. The little 5% guy's on his own, all these people are stacked up. So it completely aligns with what you just said.
I didn't believe it at first. I definitely came out of Berkeley with all my student loans and was like, all about the money.
Yeah.
But no, it's not. It's more than that.
Wonderful. So with that, because we're over time, I'm going to probably be wrapping it up there. After today's recorded session, I'm going to be sending out a quick survey. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about the topic today and just some general feedback. From my perspective, I learned a bunch. I was actually, even though this is recorded, I was taking notes as we went along here because there's all sorts of good takeaways. We're gonna transcribe this, put it into a blog, and then share it with a larger group as well. But I really wanted to thank Rachel for her time. That was
thanks for having me. This is
massively beneficial. I learned a ton. Yelp has a great culture. This is a great story you've shared. So thank you so much for being with us here today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. That was amazing. And please stay tuned for future events. We got some very cool stuff coming up. And with that, I think we'll wrap it all up. And I'm going to bid you guys adieu and wish you guys a wonderful day. Thank you so much.